How many games do you think the Indianapolis Colts are going to win this year? Do you think they're going to be better than they were a year ago? Do you think Matt Ryan was a huge upgrade over Carson Wentz at quarterback? Do you think that Colts secondary, their defense is going to be one of the best in the league this year? And more importantly, do you think the Colts can win their division and actually make the playoffs this year and could make a run in the AFC side of the league? This is an interesting video to really, for me to do a prediction video on, because there's a lot of really interesting, intriguing things about the Colts that I like that they did this off season. And I think after last season and the record, I think this Colts team is a dark horse. I think this is a good, underrated Colts team that has a good run game, underrated receivers, and by far a very underrated defense that could scare some people. I think this is a very good Colts team. But are they going to be able to do enough to win the division and make the playoffs? So is the biggest question of them all. Let's take a look. It's your boy James, and we're about to analyze the Indianapolis Colts schedule. So we're going to look at week one. The Colts open up their opener with the Houston Texans at the Texans. The Texans aren't a very good team this year. The Colts should win that one pretty handedly, in my opinion. I think they should sweep the Texans yet again. Texans haven't really done anything to improve their team. They had a good draft, which they might be better in the future, but I don't see anything going with the Texans right now. I think the Colts should win in week one pretty handily. Then you look in week two. This was a dreadful loss for the Colts last year, losing in Jacksonville in the last week of the regular season, where you're in a scenario where you're supposed to, all you really need to do is win this game and you're in. The Jags were, and they still are going to be, in my opinion, one of the worst teams in the league this year. But for whatever reason, the Colts always find ways to lose to the Jaguars, especially in Jacksonville. And it's very difficult for me to say that they're going to sweep the Jags because of how the Jags are the Colts' kryptonite in their division. It's a division rival, and it's in Jacksonville, and it's early in the season. So Jacksonville, Florida is still going to be pretty hot. So I think Jacksonville is going to either win in week two or week six, but because of recent history says that they've lost like 8 straight games or something crazy like that in Jacksonville, I think Jacksonville is going to win in week two against the Colts at home and beat the Colts, and that's going to leave the Colts being at 1-1. But then you look at week three. The Kansas City Chiefs go to Indianapolis to play in Indy. This is a really interesting game. The last time these two teams had met was when Jacoby Brissett was the starter for this team, and the Colts surprisingly kept Patrick Mahomes and company at only 13 points. Is that going to happen again? This Colts defense has gotten significantly better, especially in the passing game. If teams pass on them, I think with an addition to Stephon Gilmore definitely helps make this Colts defense be more improved and better than they were a year or two ago. So I could definitely see this game either going either way. I can see the Chiefs definitely winning this game. I mean, anytime you go up against Patrick Mahomes, you know it's never an easy game for any team that plays against them, especially if it's in the division. It's never easy to beat Patrick Mahomes at all. But Matt Ryan is the quarterback now for this team. And if Carson Wentz was still the quarterback for this Colts team, I would say the Chiefs would win. But Matt Ryan has had a decent game against Patrick Mahomes before, and actually could have beaten him in 2 seasons ago when he was with Atlanta. So this could be a potential upset game, and a game that the Colts would actually really need to win early on. They would have to win some of these early games to even be talked about in playoff contention. So I do think after losing to a horrible team like the Jaguars, there's a good possibility that I do think the Colts can beat the Chiefs. I think the Colts run game is the Chiefs defense is a struggle in terms of their defense, especially when it's in the run defense. I think this is a team that you can run pretty much all over this Chiefs defense. And the Chiefs defense is not going to be anywhere special until you get into the later part of the season. And I do think the Colts do have enough of what it takes to beat the Chiefs early on in the season. So I'm going to take the Colts to beat the Chiefs. I really think they have enough. I think I think they have a good roster. Jonathan Taylor is an amazing running back. He's one of the best running, if not the best running back in the football league right now. And that's going to be tough for the Chiefs to stop that running game. I really do. And I think that upgrade to Matt Ryan playing now for this team helps a little bit. I think that kind of makes the receivers more adjustable to a more consistent and reliable quarterback. So I'm going to pick the Colts to win in week 3 against the Chiefs. Then in week 4, you got the Titans, and you're playing at home against the Titans. I think the Titans are going to split with you guys again. I think the Titans are not the greatest team. I think they're still going to be a decent team, but are they going to be better than the Colts is kind of a question mark to me. So I think the what's going to happen here, I think the Titans are going to win one of these games. I don't know if it's going to be in week 4 or if it's going to be later on in week 7. So I think the Titans have had some success with beating Indianapolis in Indy. So I think the Titans are going to win the first matchup here, and then the Colts are going to win in Tennessee in the second matchup in week 7. That's just how I see it, because I don't see the Titans sweeping the Colts, and I don't see the Colts sweeping the Titans. So that's kind of a fair game. I think it will be a good game, but I think right now, I think the Colts really are better on paper than the Titans, but I don't want to underestimate Mike Vrabel either, because no matter what kind of team he has always impressed and has always put together the best team possible. So I think that's going to be where I'm going to land right now with the Colts. I think they're going to split with the Titans. And then in week 5, this is a really good matchup, a sneaky good matchup on Thursday Night Football. You've got the Indianapolis Colts going to Denver to play the Denver Broncos. This game can go either way. I think this is going to be a very low scoring game where it's probably going to be like maybe like a 17-10 game, a 17-13 game, a 13-10 or a 10-9. I think when I say it's going to be a low scoring game, I really do think it's going to be a low scoring game. And I think either team has the advantage to take advantage to win this game. I can see the Broncos winning because they have Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson is an upgrade over Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock combined. I think the Broncos are doing everything that they can to make this team better than they were a year ago. I think they're going to be more competitive. And I think that defensive side of the ball has improved. I think their defense is going to be better. But I think the biggest thing you have to really think about is, are they going to be able to stop Jonathan Taylor? Jonathan Taylor is just unstoppable right now. It's very hard to I think for any team really to stop him. A lot of teams had a hard time trying to figure him out and trying to stop him last year. So I think it's a very close game, but I'm going to take the Colts to win this one because I think in week 5, Russell Wilson is still going to be a little shaky. He's still going to try to figure out the Broncos and what their team is like. I think he's still going to be getting used to the receivers at this point in the season, this early on. So I think the Colts win in week 5. And same with Matt Ryan. I think Matt Ryan is still going to try to figure out the new playbook with the Colts. I think he's going to try to figure out who his receivers are and how they do. But I think right now, I think the Colts just have a slightly better roster than the Broncos do. And I think right now, I don't know what the coaching staff is going to be like for the Broncos. So that kind of makes things a little bit questionable on how that's going to go. But I know Frank Reich is a very good coach for this team, and I think he's going to be able to do just enough and be able to do what he can to beat the Broncos. Week 6, they play the Jags at home. They should win that game after losing to them in week 2 in Jacksonville. So that shouldn't be too much of a hard one to really figure out. I think that's a pretty decent one to do. And then you're looking into, so they don't have a bye week until week 14, which is going to be a while until they have one. So then you look into week 8, you play the Washington football team in Indianapolis. Carson Wentz returning to Indianapolis is going to be an interesting scenario for both teams because both teams, I believe Ron Rivera is a very good coach for a team that is not the greatest in the Washington Commanders. But I think Ron Rivera is always going to put in his A game against any team that he plays. But I think Frank Reich is also a very good coach. But I think Frank Reich has a better quarterback. I think he's got a better roster on offense, and that defense is still better. So I'm going to take the Colts to win in week 8. I think they have more than the Washington Commanders do. I'm not completely sold on what the Commanders have as of right now. But they could prove me wrong later. I don't know. They could, and I will be the first to admit it. But right now, I trust the Colts and Matt Ryan to be able to beat Carson Wentz and the Commanders. Then week 9, this was an interesting game I talked about when I did my New England predictions. I think this is going to be a very sneaky, a very close game like it was a year ago. The Patriots really last year when these two teams met, the Patriots weren't really in that game until the second half of the game when there were so many different turnovers and Carson Wentz throwing a tough interception there. It makes the Patriots. I think the Patriots do have what they can to beat the Colts. I can see this game going either way. However, I think the Colts on paper are just a better roster on both sides of the ball. And with all the offseason trades and the draft class that they were able to get, I think the Colts do beat the Patriots. I think they have a better roster. I think they have a good enough coaching staff that will make the right calls. And I think that what they're going to do is what they did last year, have Jonathan Taylor the whole entire game pretty much with only very few pass plays. And that's how they're going to beat the Patriots because the Patriots defense is tough. And I think the biggest weakness for the Patriots is the run defense. I think as long as you can run the ball on the Patriots, I think you can beat them. So I think the Colts win in week 9. Then week 10, you got a rematch of last year, which was a barn burner at the end. You have the Indianapolis Colts going to the Las Vegas Raiders. This game, I can definitely see going either way. This is a good team. These are two good teams that are going under the radar this year. They're trying to make a name for themselves. They're trying to be better than they were a season ago. But I think the Raiders with Josh McDaniels is good. I think Derek Carr and company, and now that they're improving on that offensive side, now that they have Devontae Adams, they have Hunter Renfrow, they have Darren Waller, and I believe they still have Deshaun Jackson, if I'm not mistaken. I think the running game is going to be improved, but I think this Raiders team is a really good team, and I think they're going to be able to find a way to beat the Colts. Because I think Carson Wentz, not Carson Wentz. I think Derek Carr is going to be very good this year. I think he's going to have a great year now that he has that true number one receiver, and that's going to be tough for some teams to really stop. But seeing those matchups happen this year on both sides of very underrated defenses, it's going to make things interesting. But I think the Raiders do what they can. I think Josh McDaniels, in my opinion, is a better coach than Frank Reich at this point in the season. And I think he's going to do what he can to beat the Colts. So I'm going to take the Colts to win that one. Week 11, you got the Philadelphia Eagles going. They're going to the Indianapolis Colts. This should be a good, fun game for both teams. But I think the Colts are better than the Eagles. I think the Eagles are going to do just enough to get by and possibly either win their division or make the playoffs. But I think the Colts are just a far better team in terms of running the ball, passing the ball. I think Matt Ryan should have a field day against this secondary with the Eagles. I don't know how this Eagles defense is going to do, but I think the Colts are just a better team overall in terms of using Jonathan Taylor to their advantage. And they could even get him going in the passing game as well. So that's all going to really play into factor. But give me the Colts for week 11. Week 12, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going to visit Indianapolis on Monday Night Football. I picked the Colts in my Steelers prediction. And the reasonings behind that, because we don't, well, for one, we don't really know what the Steelers defense is going to, the Steelers quarterback is going to be. We don't know if it's going to be Mitchell Trubisky or if it's going to be Kenny Pickett. Not that it's really going to make a big difference on who the quarterback is going to be, but I think just like with the Patriots game, I think this Colts team is going to do what they're going to do with the Patriots. I think they're going to run the ball to Jonathan Taylor. I think they're going to do a lot with that, and I think that's going to be enough to be able to beat Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. So I'm going to take the Colts to win that one on Monday Night Football. Then Week 13, the Colts going to the Dallas Cowboys. This could be a very interesting game because this is where kind of like Dallas they'll either start to fall apart at this point in the season, or they could get stronger in terms of the defense. I think that defense is going to be significantly really good. The defense for the Dallas Cowboys at least is going to be very good, but I'm not sure really how they're going to really match up with Jonathan Taylor. I think if you are on the on the coaching staff for the Colts, I think you'd use as much of Jonathan Taylor as possible to beat the Dallas Cowboys, because I'm not really sure if I really trust their run defense or the Cowboys' run defense to be able to make some big stops to stop Jonathan Taylor. I just don't see it personally. And I believe it's a Sunday Night Football game. It's one of those weird games. So yeah, I think the Colts go to America's team, and I think they beat the Cowboys. I think it's going to be a very not a easy game for them. I don't think it's going to be an easy game for Matt Ryan and that receiving core. But honestly, I just think the Colts are just a better team than the Cowboys. I don't know. I don't really think the Cowboys are really anything that great this year, in my opinion. So I'm going to take the Colts to beat the Cowboys in Week 13. Then you're looking into the bye week. So you got Week 14. So you're looking at a 10-3 record for the Colts right now. Okay, so that's a pretty solid record for them. So let's take a look at the later part of the season and where they're going to be. So Week 15, they're coming off the bye and they play the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota is a really hard place to play. It's very loud. The fans are unbelievable, and I just think right now it's a tough game to really decide, because this game could really go either way. I think the biggest thing that the Colts can really take advantage of is the secondary for the Minnesota Vikings. I think the Minnesota Vikings defense has not really been the greatest the last couple of years with Mike Zimmer. They did do some things to make them better, but they're still not elite to really call the Vikings a good defense. But I think this could be a sneaky good game. I can see this game going really either way for either team. It's a really tough one to decide. It really is a tough game to decide which one is going to be, which team is going to win. That's a tough one. I think I really like the Vikings. I do like the Vikings. I like what they did this year. So I think I'm going to go with the Vikings to beat the Colts, because I think Kirk Cousins is I think he's a phenomenal quarterback. He's definitely much better than what people give him credit for. I think with teams like trying to stop players like a Dalvin Cook, if he stays healthy at least, Justin Jefferson or Adam Thielen, and all those those all offensive playmakers, it's going to be tough for teams like the Colts to really stop, in my opinion. I think Justin Jefferson is an elite receiver. I think he does really well in this game, and I can really see the Vikings being able to pull off this, I guess you can, in somewhat of an upset for this team. So I'm going to take the Vikings. I think the Vikings can win in Week 15 against this team. And then you got to go back home on a Monday night, and then you got to play the Chargers. The Chargers are just a very good team. They're an overall Justin Herbert and company. That defense has gotten a lot better. Brandon Staley is a great coach for this team. I think the Chargers should win this game in convincing fashion. It could be a close game. I could see Matt Ryan doing well, but I think this Chargers team is just too much for the Colts to handle, especially with Justin Herbert, who's just an absolute baller. I'm going with the Chargers to win that game in Indianapolis on a Monday night. And then week 17, you got the Colts and the Giants. This could be a very sneaky, good, close game. And I think the reason why I say that is because they go to New Jersey to play the Giants. And around this time, we were looking at early January. You're playing on New Year's Day, so it around that time of year, it's very cold. It's very tough to play there. That game could go either way. It really could go either way. I could see the Colts winning, but not by a whole lot. But I could also see the Giants winning as well, and not doing a whole lot, not winning by a whole lot on offense as well. So it's a good game for both teams. But I think that right now, because of the Jonathan Taylor being just the great, outstanding running back that he is, I don't know how that's really going to pan out well for the Giants defense. I think the Giants defense still needs a lot of work to do to make themselves better, but it might go either way. But I think the Colts win that game. And then you look at week 18, you play the Houston Texans. You should win that game as well in the last week of the regular season. So you're looking at a 12-5 record. I think the worst that the Colts really could be is either a 10-7 or a 9-8. And I think they still have a very good shot of winning their division in the AFC South, because there's just not really any good teams besides them. And the Titans are a decent team as well. So really, honestly, if as long as they have a winning season, and they hope that the Titans they get hurt and they don't win that many games in the division, I could see the Colts sneaking into a playoff spot, winning that division and sneaking into the playoffs. But I think 12-5 is a pretty good record. I think, like I said, I think the lowest I would put for them is a 9-8 record like they were a year ago. But I think 12-5 is pretty good for this team. I think they have improved. I think they're going to be a better team. I think they just need to play like they know they can play, and use all those players that they have to their advantage. And then if they can do that, they can win all these games. Well, that's the Indianapolis Colts. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment down below. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think the Colts are going to be. Do you think they're going to be a good team? Do you think they're going to be a bad team? Let me know in the comments. And for the next one, we will do the Tennessee Titans for the AFC South.